So into your web applications, that's static. And then if you understand that one, if you are more interested to how can you hold this data from the database or some REST services call, or the GIS database or GeoServer database and data services, then you can build very quickly. That's why I said that you can look for my other example, my channels. You have a really good example how can you do to data entering or data manipulation from getting the data from the database and put this data into your web pages or your web maps. And that's things is you need to be learned really very beginning level to the professional level, because there's the that's I'm talking about. If you are calling the REST services to get the data from any sort of format, GeoJSON or JSON format, you need to be learn it. You have to be write down, or you have to be understand the whole complete architecture for this communication and the development. That's But this one really basic, really basic understanding. How can you start? How can you use it? And how can you start the development really from the very basic Java web programming, like very simple JavaScript, very simple HTML and CSS and so on and so forth. And that's the intention for this screencast. If you get it really properly, then it works. That's my expectation. It should works. It has to be go some way. So let's little bit talk about the graphics functions as I'm looking for the graph. OpenStreetMap HTML is see the graph function somehow. If I am missing something, let's see. Because I'm forget a little bit part of the application functionality, because it was the last. It was the build this application 2016, but today I'm recording 2020. CSS and JavaScript functions, and then you have some graph libraries. I didn't have it here. Let's see. Thema, default thema, images. That's we have all the images, and then also our images. That's one. So it is not a problem. Our this distance functions, get info, get features, and this is the projection JavaScript library. This is all the template. This is the graph library that's I am looking for. Try to look for this one. So you see the graph library. So very simple JavaScript functions that's we are calling from here. So this is the functions, JavaScript functions. It's loading the standard our maps, the what is here, the TypeScript, OSM and Google Maps template test. And this is the test library, and this is the graph library. So here I need a little bit discussion about this one. So how then graph library it works, that's what I mean here the graph library, this one. So if you have a really basic, this is the hard coded by static values, but even though you can make the dynamic graphs value in here. So that's why I'm trying to give it to you a dynamic example here, these cases. So it has to be calculated dynamically how the graph distributions. That's why I'm said this coming from this distribution and so on so forth, these graphs. Then I will show you later when I start the development. That's I said I try to share with you how the next step, how the coming this one, how can build this simple, very simple web page with the leaflet JavaScript library, and the dynamically you build the graphs. That's the graph library in my. So it's a graph library, then you have some possibility. Okay, so we have graph library, is have data. That means this is the dynamic data that's coming from some sort of from information. That's the survey sheet, and then you can plot it. Okay, you see the one of the name of the OSM, the GSM operator coming phone in Bangladesh have some static values. So 20, 11, 15, just like the data how it's coming. But in reality, this data coming from the your survey forms by your input forms, or even though it is data coming from the your database, and then all in via the REST service or SOAP services, or any web service called and build this data and from the website. And then you have a jQuery functions, and then you have a plot the maps, like give it a specific plot ID, then the items that you have it in that list of array, item array, the data variables, it's getting the items, and then you have some features and functionalities, some how can you visualize your maps, your diagrams, colors, and then boundary, and so on so forth, all things together. You can already manipulate those things together. So yes, and have the graphs, and then you have the radius of the graphs, and then maybe let's have a change 19, maybe it works. And then we can start again the refresh the page. You see that it's changing the size of your diagram, the radius of your maps. Maybe you can, what you can do, maybe the width we can make it 2. Then we can see the effect of the width. No, it doesn't. Let's see what I mean. So come back to the here, the one opacity series, and the series of the levels informations, and so on so forth. But this is the parameter, the attribute. You can control it, and you can manipulate those things together into your graph service, graph functions. I believe this is the graph functions. Yeah, that's true. This is the graph functions, and this is the so is it save? Why it doesn't work? Let's see again. We can save it. Radius maybe the 100%, and then level show, or maybe level show level false. Level false. So let's see, run it again, refresh the page. So it's a full size, and show level is, let's see that it works now. Because as I said, it was the 2016 implemented, but I forget the real functionalities. True. Let's see, it still works. So graph library, and then refresh it again. No, shouldn't. Let's manipulate the maps itself. I will look for that one, why it is not working what we expected. Let's see, change the size of the graph. 200 pixel width, 200 pixels, and then refresh it again. Why not? So you see that it works, but unfortunately this is the graphs that doesn't work properly. but I'll give it to you the feedback for